It is an historic day in the US. The second impeachment trial of Donald Trump is now underway. This is the first time a former president has been tried after leaving office, and the opening debate is on whether that is constitutional. Sky News Washington correspondent Annalise Nielsen joins us live from DC. Annalise, good morning, good afternoon where you are. The Democrats are arguing if they don't proceed, it will create a January exception.
That's what they've dubbed it, and that's likely to stick because this is the key argument of the Republicans, saying that you can't impeach a president after he's left office for something he did while he was in office. Now, the Democrats have come out very early on in this proceeding saying that that would basically preclude any future administration from then going after a president after they've left office in the weeks of January, which is the most tenuous time in a transition of power already. They've also played quite a bit of video footage of the day to try and evoke some of that emotion about just how scary that whole day was. But this is just the first 4 hours of what's going to be 16 hours of arguments for each side. The Senate's opening with this 4 hours of debate to determine whether it's constitutional. Now, they are going to win that because it's a simple majority that's required despite the Republican opposition. Then they'll each get this 16 hours. That will include 4 hours of senators' questions, a vote on whether to call witnesses, which will likely drag out that time, and then also 4 hours of closing arguments, and then a vote on whether to convict or acquit. Now, if we look at this in the broader context of why they're going after it, the Senate's voting to convict, that would require 67 votes, which would need 17 Republicans to cross the floor, which at this stage looks very unlikely. If he's convicted, it's then that a majority of Senates could vote to bar Donald Trump from running for office, but that would only require a simple majority if they could get over that first hurdle. If he's acquitted, though, Donald Trump could then run again for the presidency in 2024, which would be a long-running challenge for the Republicans, I should say, for the next 4 years. If he's acquitted, there could be a vote to censure him with a statement of disapproval, which would quite likely pass with the number of Republicans who've spoken out as well. But the majority Senate vote to require him to be disqualified from office, as we mentioned, 51 out of 100. Chuck Schumer, now the Senate Majority Leader, has spoken ahead of the hearings today, saying that this is an extraordinary moment in US history and the most serious charges that any president has ever been impeached for.
The second impeachment trial of Donald John Trump. It's our solemn constitutional duty to conduct a fair and honest impeachment trial of the charges against former President Trump, the gravest charges ever brought against a president of the United States in American history.
Pete, this trial's set to run for less than a week, which, if you'll remember, the last impeachment is much quicker. This time there's been a lot of lessons learned from the first time around, and both sides are keen to make their points punchy. The Democrats have opened by using a bit of video footage from the day as well as graphics to demonstrate what dates could be precluded if they don't adhere to what they're calling this January exception. But it's the video footage that was the most confronting, especially given that this is only just over a month ago that the riots happened in the same building.
Think about it. What will the January exception mean to future generations if you grant it? I'll show you.
This was not a close election, and after this, we're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down. We're going to walk down to the Capitol.
Yeah! Take the Capitol! Take the Capitol! Take the Capitol! We are going to the Capitol, where our problems are. It's that direction.
Meanwhile, President Joe Biden, while he's been supportive of the impeachment process, it has put pressure on him being able to both confirm his cabinet picks and also pass through his legislative agenda for things like stimulus package for the US economy, which has really been struggling through the coronavirus pandemic. There's now been over 460,000 Americans who've passed away with the disease. He's been asked about whether he'd be tuning in. They've said that he's going to be more focused on making sure he's governing for the people at this time. Here's the White House press secretary.
President Biden. We put out a statement following the conclusion of the House vote just a couple of weeks ago, and he made clear in that statement that he felt the process should proceed as history, and many laws predetermine, and he is going to wait for the Senate to determine the outcome of this. But his view is that his role should be currently focused on addressing the needs of the American people, putting people back to work, addressing the pandemic.
Pete, we can expect this resolution on whether it's constitutional or not today. It's then later in the week we'll start getting into more of these arguments. There was supposed to be a break on the Saturday because one of Donald Trump's key lawyers is Jewish and asked for the Jewish Sabbath off, but he's now rescinded that request, and so it looks like they will be working right through the week. We could have a result as early as Sunday. OK,
so Annalise, just to clarify there for our viewers at home who might not be across this as we are, so there's actually 3 votes that are taking place. There's one about whether it's constitutional, another about whether there is a conviction or acquittal, and then there's another one, a third one, about whether to bar him from office.
And the third one will only happen if he is convicted. And so that's one of the goals of the Democrats, to stop him being able to run again. You're right, that first one is that discussion of whether it's constitutional or not. That's what the Republicans are arguing it's not. It's really been a strategy of the Republicans to give cover to those who've been critical of Donald Trump but also don't want to see him put out to dry, because that's going to enrage so much of their base who is still very devoted to Donald Trump. He still had over 74 million people vote for the Republican Party at the election. They cannot ignore that. So the first vote will be this 4 hours debate on whether it's constitutional. Then the second debate will be on whether he should be convicted of inciting an insurrection against the United States government. And then if that passes, the third vote on whether to preclude him or not.